This time I am going to explain a movie called Taken, released in 2008. Spoiler is on the way. Brian is a retired government agent. He attends his daughter's 17th birthday celebration at a luxurious mansion with a gift he has carefully selected for her. Lenore, his ex-wife, greets him. She is very dismissive of him and criticizes his choice of gift and that he came at all. His daughter Kim is very glad about her gift, but she is quickly distracted by her rich stepfather's gift of a horse. Brian is left feeling defeated. Later, he is alone in his modest small apartment. 3 friends, all also retired agents, come over for poker, steaks and beer. One of them invites Brian to make some quick cash as a security guard escorting a pop star to her concert nearby. After her vocal warm-up, Brian asks the pop star for advice for his daughter, who wishes to be a singer. She replies, "Tell her to pick another career." Brian receives a call from Kim, who invites him to lunch the next day. Things get hectic for a moment at the concert when security is distracted by a mob of fans breaking through. Brian escorts the pop star away from the crowd, but is confronted by an attacker with a knife in his hand. Luckily, Brian quickly knocks him down. Later, as a thank you, the pop star offers Brian to help his daughter find a vocal coach and a manager if she has any talent. Brian is very excited and plans to let Kim know about Shira's offer. However, Lenore comes to the lunch also, and it becomes clear he was invited only to sign the parental consent form. Kim needs to take a vacation to Paris with her friend Amanda. Brian is reluctant to agree, knowing the dangers of the real world and feeling Kim is too young for it. But she explains she will be staying with Amanda's cousins and spend most of her time in museums. Brian says he will consider the matter, but Kim takes it as a no and becomes very upset. Lenore tears into Brian for being too cautious. She wants their daughter to experience life. The next day, Brian shows up at the mansion with the signed consent, a prepaid international cell phone, and a condition that Kim needs to call him every day and tell him if she changes her stay location. At the airport, as Brian gets Kim's luggage out of the car, he sees a map of Europe with several cities circled in a pocket of Kim's bag. He confronts Lenore, who confesses to him that the girls will actually be following a rock band on their European tour, and not just staying in Paris. Brian is furious, but Lenore tells him to stop being so controlling and let Kim have this trip or he will lose her. He escorts her to the gate with a smile. In Paris, while waiting in line for a cab outside the airport, the 2 girls meet a friendly, handsome young man named Peter, who takes their picture with Kim's phone. He suggests that they all share a cab to get downtown more cheaply. Amanda immediately agrees. Appearing chivalrous, Peter has the cab drop the girls off first. He invites them to a party that very night and Amanda enthusiastically agrees, while Kim is reluctant. When the trio splits up, Peter makes a quick phone call. He simply says 2 girls, about 18, and the address of the apartment. Upstairs, Kim inquires where the cousins are. Amanda breezily announces that the cousins are on vacation in Spain. Back in the US, a concerned Brian checks the arrival information and learns that Kim's plane has landed. He tries to call her, but Amanda has turned up the music in the apartment so loud that none of the girls can hear Kim's phone ring. Finally, Brian is able to reach Kim. She goes to the other side of the loft to hear her father better. As they talk, Kim can see Amanda through the windows on the other side. Suddenly, she sees 2 men grab her and carry her away, while Amanda kicks and struggles. Panicked, Kim tells her father what she just saw. He immediately takes control and orders her to go to the nearest bedroom and hide under the bed. Through a series of questions, he learns that Kim and Amanda shared a cab with a man named Peter. In a calm but serious voice, he tells her to leave her phone on and that she has 5 to 10 seconds to yell out a description of them. Brian plugs a tape recorder into his phone. 2 men enter the bedroom and are surprised not to find the second girl. They are conversing in a foreign language. The 2 men seem to have left the room and Kim is relieved when she is suddenly pulled out from under the bed. At Brian's direction, she yells out the description of the attacker and that he has a tattoo. He hears her scream for a few more seconds. Then after a moment of silence, Brian hears heavy breathing. He tells the kidnapper that he will not pursue him if he releases his daughter immediately. "And I will kill you," invoking his skills as a covert agent. The kidnapper, who has a heavy accent, replies, "Good luck." Brian sends the recorded conversation to his ex-agency friend. Then he storms to Stuart, his ex-wife's husband, and confronts him about possible business enemies who arranged Kim's kidnapping. His business issues are not the source of the problem. Brian tells Stuart that he needs a private jet to Paris as soon as possible. Brian searches Kim's room and all her personal possessions for possible clues. Meanwhile, he talks on the speakerphone to his friend at the agency so Lenore can also hear him. He provides a detailed report identifying the language as Albanian. Their leader is named Marco and is a very powerful figure. Sam tells him that the Albanians kidnap girls for prostitution and Brian has at most 96 hours before his daughter disappears forever. On the private jet, Brian plays the recording of Kim's abduction over and over again, memorizing every sound. In Paris, he first gains access to the girl's apartment. He visualizes the kidnapping based on the clues left at the scene and finds the memory card from Kim's smashed cell phone lying next to the bed Kim was hiding under. In a do-it-yourself photo kiosk, Brian finds the picture Peter took at the airport and zooms in on a reflection of him. At the airport, Peter uses the same share a cab line with a blonde. Brian assaults Peter to find out about the girls from yesterday. However, a large man, Peter's accomplice, tries to stop him. When he fights the man off, Peter runs away. Brian takes off in pursuit. Peter runs into traffic and Brian jumps out of the car and pursues him on foot. Peter then jumps over the overpass and lands seemingly safe when a truck hits and kills him. Brian then meets with an old acquaintance, Jean, who works for French intelligence, to ask for his help. Jean tells Brian where the Albanian pimps are located, but asks him not to cause any problems. When Brian leaves, Jean has him tailed. After getting a rental car, Brian meets with an Albanian translator he hired in the hooker area and first tells him to wait in the car. Then Brian deliberately wastes a prostitute's time to have her pimp come over to rough up the seemingly meek Brian and demand money. Brian secretly plants a listening device on the pimp. Back in the car, he has the interpreter listen to the bug's audio and translate the Albanian conversation. They talk about problems with the new merchandise at a nearby construction site. Brian excuses the interpreter, but not before picking up the Albanian English dictionary he asked him for. At the construction site, Brian poses as a customer to have a little fun and is led inside. There, ropes have been stretched and blankets draped over them to form rooms on either side of a center aisle. As he walks down the aisle, he peers into each room. He spots his daughter's jacket and enters the room, but the girl is not Kim. She's too high to tell him where she got the jacket. He starts beating up all the bouncers and carries her to a nearby jeep through a few nasty shots. After a wild chase, he manages to escape from a swarm of angry Albanians. He drives to a quiet, secluded hotel and rents a room from the owner, who is also his old acquaintance. Brian puts on IV drip and injects the girl with an ultra-rapid detox for her system. Later, Jean demands a meeting with Brian out in the open by the river. His cell phone rings. It's Brian, who says he doesn't trust meeting with him. Jean says what he did on the construction site did cause him some problems. The boss did want Brian jailed, but he had convinced him to instead authorize a plane ticket to send him back to America for past services. He refuses. Meanwhile, the policemen have been triangulating the source of Brian's phone call, and a squad of men burst onto a nearby rooftop. There they find a cell phone rigged with a walkie-talkie. He is actually on another roof nearby and walks away easily. The girl regains consciousness and tells Brian that she got the jacket from another girl. She can only remember that it was in a house with red doors on Rue Paradis. He finds the house with red doors, boldly and confidently goes inside and pretends to be Jean with his business card. Brian is led past several thugs into a dirty kitchen. 4 Albanians sit around a table with tattoos that Kim has described. He tries to figure out who the leader is, but they all claim to be Marco. He tells them that their former contact in the police has been transferred and he will now collect the bribes, for which the price has just gone up. After some haggling, a deal is struck and he believes he has identified the man from Kim's description. Brian says a friend gave him a note in Albanian. He hands it to the apparent leader and asks him to translate it. The leader replies, "Good luck." He immediately recognizes Marco's voice and says to him, "You don't remember me. I told you I'd find you." And suddenly Brian is fighting and shooting the house full of armed men. When the smoke clears, he has killed all but Marco. Brian searches all the upstairs bedrooms in the building for Kim. He finds several women handcuffed to beds and Amanda's body. She had overdosed. He then tortures Marco with electricity to find Kim's location. After trying to tough it out, Marco tells him that Kim was sold to a man named St. Clair. Brian turns the electricity back on and leaves Marco screaming in agony. Jean comes home for supper to discover Brian is visiting like an old friend. As he puts his kids to bed, he recovers a pistol from the bathroom and tucks it into the back of his waistband. At the dining room table, Brian casually speaks about moving to Paris and drops the address of the Albanian pimp house. He then confronts Jean for selling protection and anonymity to the Albanians. Jean pulls out his gun and aims it at him, angrily detailing the gap between his pay and his expenses. Brian then tosses a handful of bullets onto the table, saying that he got sloppy sitting behind the desk. He pulls his own pistol and shoots his wife in the arm, saying it's a flesh wound but that his next shot will kill her unless Jean provides him with information on St. Clair. Jean then goes into his office and uses his access to the French intelligence database to locate St. Clair. Brian says he is sorry for shooting his wife and then whips Jean unconscious. Again, Brian poses as Jean and gains access to a party hosted by St. Clair. He discovers that St. Clair is hosting a much more sinister party on a lower floor. He assumes the disguise of a waiter and gains access to one of the bidding rooms. The auctioneer announces the last and best woman of the evening. An American, a pure virgin. The girl is Kim. Brian points a gun at the buyer in the room, forcing him to outbid the others to buy her. The bidding goes up to $500,000, but when he leaves the room, he is knocked unconscious from behind. When he wakes up, he is hanging from a pipe just below the ceiling. He admits to St. Clair that he is the father of the last girl. St. Clair says, "Too bad. It's business and she's already sold." He then orders his henchmen to quietly execute Brian and leaves the room. Despite being shackled to the overhead pipe, He manages to break the pipe loose and escape while killing the guards. He meets the surprised St. Clair standing by the elevator. St. Clair unsuccessfully pleads for his life, saying it was just business and telling him that Kim will be at a pier. Brian shoots him dead. He runs to the river, but misses the large yacht that Kim and other veiled women have been pushed onto as it sails down the river. Brian drives a stolen car against the one-way street to get into position on a bridge, then jumps on the ship as it passes underneath. On board, a robed Arab sheikh lies on a bed while a group of veiled women are let in. Brian fights his way through the sheikh's guards and enters the bedroom, where the sheikh holds a curved knife to Kim's throat. He shoots him in the head. Back in the US, Kim is reunited with her mother. As a thank you, Lenore even hugs him. Later, he mysteriously picks up Kim and takes her to a surprise meeting. The pop star opens the door. Thanks for watching. Bye.